Mitch Light, senior editor, college sports at theathletic.com. He joins us on 365 Sports. And Mitch, last time we talked with you 2-3 weeks ago, of course, they were still winding down conference play. That's all over. Tournament play. Now we get to what happens. Somebody's going to win a national title. And thanks for your time. Who, in your opinion, is a team that should be hosting a regional that you think was the one probably hit the most?
I'll give the boring answer and say none. I think the committee got it right. The two maybe ones that a lot of people are talking about would be Georgia Tech and TCU. You know, Georgia Tech in this era of super conferences, bigger, you know, ACC's got, 16, 17 teams. They won the league outright, but percentage points over Florida State. But they didn't play Florida State. They didn't play North Carolina. They didn't play NC State. They did play Clemson. So of the 4 teams behind them, they only played 3. So I think just granting a host site to the ACC champ, the champ of the second best league, you can't just do that automatically because the schedules aren't the same. And TCU had a case. They went 19-11 in the Big 12, the third best conference, 18 RPI, which is obviously on the fringe there. But their problem was they lost 2 of 3 games at home in the pre-conference schedule to Southern Miss, another team they were battling with. So it's not just head-to-head, but that has to factor in. So my guess is the committee was looking at TCU as one of the host sites and SMU as one of the host sites. Well, Southern Miss, a mid-major team, goes on the road and beats TCU 2 out of 3. They stated their case right there.
Which top 8 seed is white-knuckling their regional the most?
Good question. I think UCLA possibly. I think Irvine's a really good team that was talk about teams that they didn't really have a case to host, but in every projection, probably until the last 3 weeks, Irvine was one of those teams that was going to host. They stumbled down the stretch. They lost 2 of their last 3 home conference series, and then they lost twice to Cal Poly. In the Big West tournament. And I think Arizona State was a bubble team, but a very, very good offensive team. In Big 12 action, they were like first in the league in average, second in home runs, second in fewest strikeouts, all these stats that you look at in conference play. So I think they're a dangerous team. And, Fresno State, if this were 15 years ago and Aaron Judge was playing for them, maybe they'd be a good 4 seed. But I don't think that's going to be the case this year.
What do you think about the way Texas is looking heading into the postseason right now? I mean, they were number 1, what seemed like for forever, and then, had a couple stumbles down the stretch, still in a very good position. But just what do you make of the way they're playing at the moment?
Revive Superfood Smoothies. Pill, pour, blend, and enjoy. All within the comfort of my own home.
Revive Superfood Smoothies. Peel, blend, and enjoy. Fast and easy, and I'm out the door.
Yeah, they did stumble down the stretch. They lost that home series to Florida. No shame in that. Florida was playing really well. And then they took 2 of 3 from Oklahoma. And then the one and done in the SEC tournament, not a big deal. I mean, they were throwing a midweek guy or not even a midweek guy. They were throwing a reliever who hadn't thrown much, and Tennessee really needed to win that game to state its case to be a host. So I wouldn't put too much stock. Clearly, the team's not playing like they were earlier in the year, but I think all of us thought they were playing maybe a little bit over their head. Like, remember when they were 19-2, or like, what's going on here? This is a talented team, but no one goes 19-2 in the SEC. So they probably lost the right to be the number 1 overall seed in the last few weeks of the season. That really doesn't matter. But I agree. UTSA is a good team. Kansas State's a good team, but I like Texas as a seed.
Mitch, the Big 12 ended up with 3 of the last 4 in. Ended up with a nice chunk of teams, I think the most they've ever had. And it's neat to see Arizona win the tournament. Obviously, Arizona State with a history that has not been of recently, but a great history. Your overall thoughts about West Virginia fell down the stretch, but the teams that are in the tournament and which ones have the best opportunity to win?
Yeah, it's an interesting league because, like we said, there's no hosts from the Big 12, but they got 3 of the last 4 teams in. Just a lot of really good teams that have some warts, and they were inconsistent. Kansas was a really fun team this year. They had some huge series wins. They swept Kansas State at home. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. They had a bad series loss at home where they got swept, and they go to West Virginia when West Virginia's, in prime position to maybe host. They sweep West Virginia to end the season. So West Virginia piled up a lot of wins against a weak schedule. Interested to see how they do there. I like Arizona a lot. If I'm picking one team from the Big 12 most likely to get to Omaha, it's probably Arizona. Very balanced. We saw what they did in the Big 12 tournament, but I think it's going to be a fun league to monitor in the next few weeks.
The Coastal Carolina regional looks like it's going to be a pretty tough one and a fun one with East Carolina in there, with the Gators in there, and Coastal's been great all year long. As I look at it, it feels to me like the toughest one. But, I mean, again, these things get wild. But I do like that one particularly.
Yeah, and Coastal Carolina is maybe a team that had the biggest beef with its seed. That a lot of people thought they could be a top 8 seed. They had a great year in the Sun Belt. They had some really good non-conference wins. They beat Clemson. They beat Wake Forest. So they have to, quote-unquote, settle for 13. And who do they get as a number 2? Florida. And it's become a cliche. Like, same thing happened last year. Florida got hot, was a 3 seed in Stillwater, made the Final Four of the College World Series. This year they go from 1-9 and 1-11 in the SEC to 15-15. They take that series at Texas. They are not as good as last year's team. They don't have a Jack Caglione like they did last year. They have a lot of injuries, but they're playing very well. And East Carolina is interesting. They were a forgotten team. They're losing record in conference play for only the 3rd or 4th time this century. It looked like their tournament streak was going to be snapped. What do? They go out and win the AAC. So this is like a cliche, but it's a program that knows how to win. Cliff Godwin's team is usually built to win in the postseason. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. And Fairfield as a number 4 seed, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I looked this up. They have an unbelievable record over the last 5 years. So it's a program that knows how to win. But real quick, to talk about the most difficult region, I think it's going to be Oxford with Ole Miss. Georgia Tech talked about them as an angry 2 seed. Western Kentucky's the only team in the country that is in the top 15 in batting average and ERA, and Murray State won a ton of games as well. So I think that one's going to be really difficult for Ole Miss. How
has DBU, good old Dallas Baptist, been able to be just such a mainstay, perennial contender, and just great baseball program?
We wrote about DBU last year because I was just amazed. I think the streak's up to 12 years. And, Coach Hefner's just got a really solid program there. And I'm only half kidding when I say this, but the best thing that Dallas Baptist has going for it is that SMU doesn't have baseball. Because the way SMU likes to pour money into athletics now, I wonder what would happen there. But, yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes college baseball unique and fun. You've got a program like Dallas Baptist that most college sports fans don't know anything about because they don't play football or basketball at the Division I level. You got a Coastal Carolina that won the national championship. You got Southern Miss that's won a ton of games in host. But yeah, just again, more cliches, a culture, a pitching culture. They just continually have. They've switched conferences. They've been independent. All they do is continue to win there.
All right, Greg brought up Texas. They're going to have Houston Christian, K-State, and UTSA. That seems like they should just roll right through that, but it doesn't always work out that way, does it, Mitch?
Not at all, and that's what makes postseason baseball great. You just don't know, are there 4 seeds out there with an ace? Sometimes you can have a 4 seed with a bad record, but they've got a pitcher who's just really, really good and it's a tough matchup. Does the 2, I'm generalizing here, but does a coach of a 2 or 3 seed have his ace? Does he wait until the Saturday game and roll the dice and if they can get that win Friday? So there's just so many matchups involved. You could be facing a left-hander if you've got a lefty heavy lineup. So again, Texas looks like the favorite on paper. But ask any coach, they are nervous. Those 1-4 games make coaches really nervous because that number 4 seed's got nothing to lose, and there's all the pressure on that 1 seed.
And they have, as good as they are, and they did have injuries at the end to some key players, but are they at times a little bit suspect with their offense that they're not scoring enough runs?
Yes. They won, obviously they won the regular season title despite being 246. And slugging 432 in league games. That 246 was 13th, and they slugged 432. Now, they can pitch. They led the SEC in ERA and batting average against. But if you struggle offensively, and there's one thing, it's not necessarily unique to college baseball. It's in all sports. But I've seen it happen so many times. That higher seed, it's the 3rd or 4th inning. They got 1 hit. They're down 1 or 2-0. There's that nervous energy in the stadium. And if you're a team that struggles offensively, the team can start to press. So, yeah, I think any coach that has questions about his offense is probably a little nervous this time of year.
Last year, Tennessee won it. They've got that fiery team. It seems like even if you transfer into that school and get on that roster, you turn into kind of a semi-turd the way that they play. They got an edge to them, and it's of course their coach is like that too. They were hit and miss. We mentioned that with you last time. They played well in the tournament. Is that a team that can get hot, you think, and get deep in and get to Omaha?
No doubt. The boys in Vegas, you look at the odds, I think they still have the second or third best odds to win it all. They have a talented lineup, not nearly as talented as last year. Their pitching is a little overrated, in my opinion. Like Liam Doyle is probably the best pitcher in the country, and Marcus Phillips, their number 2 guy, is really good. They can't seem to settle on a third starter, and some of their top relievers have not been pitching very well. They don't hold runners on base very well at all, so it depends on their matchup. And Cincinnati, who's the number 3 seed in this regional, loves to steal a ton of bases. So if Cincinnati beats Wake Forest, watch for that storyline against Tennessee running the bases. But Tennessee, we keep saying, oh, they've got the talent, but they lost 4 or 5 home series. And their last time out, they lost 10-0 to Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament. At some point, they need to flip the switch on. Again, the program, the DNA of the program, they've been successful, but they got to start playing better.
They don't have Christian Moore this year, and
Blake Burke. They've got, they had generational talents last year.
Yeah, they had 2 guys that you could not get out. And so that's the biggest difference there.
You need to bring up the check swing call against Florida State.
We don't, Mitch. We don't.
Okay, I was just asking.
I was in Palm Springs on my anniversary trip, and we were going to dinner, and it happened right as we were walking into the restaurant. And then we're at the hibachi, and you've never seen an angrier person watching rice get cooked in your life than me. And the guy's like, everything okay? I'm like, yeah, I'll be fine. Give me a second.
You had a really bad 24, didn't you?
Oh, it was awful.
He went around, by the way. He went around.
Yeah.
So
with the format the way it is, and it's 4 teams, you think, okay, there's not – but if you do get behind the 8 ball, even if you're deep, can't that just wear your ass out and just like a grind to hopefully get into the championship game?
No doubt about it. And that's why that first game is so important. And the numbers, the teams that go 2-0 and say in the winner's bracket, whatever the percentage is, 70-something%. The teams that have the pitching depth are the ones that can survive. I mean, it's being master of the obvious there, but the staffs that can go on fumes. And Tennessee's one of those staffs that really has been struggling to find that third starter. So if you don't have a third starter, what are you doing with a 4th or 5th starter? So yeah, that's one thing about Texas, well positioned. They got a deep staff if they were to lose a game. But this weekend is all about surviving with your pitching. If you survive this week, then you go back to the 2 of 3 format in the super regionals, and that mimics more what you play in the regular season.
Mitch, this is not about the tournament, but what did you think about San Diego last week having their center fielder throw like 115 pitches to get through that ridiculous game?
Yeah, I'm not one of those guys that will sit here and criticize from the outside. Like if you've got an ace like Stanford a couple years ago, I forgot the guy's name, Quinn something. He threw a ton of pitches in the regional. I thought that was kind of not a great situation. But, Boston College had a guy throw a ton of pitches in the ACC tournament, and some people were all over him. If you're not a prospect and your career is going to end this week or next week, and you want to do that, and you tell the coach, okay, that's fine. Like, I don't know this outfielder situation. I was following it because the situation. So I don't know. I doubt this guy's going to be a future major league pitcher. So I think it's a great story. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Hey, man, great stuff, Mitch. And we'll see what happens. I know you're busy and you got other things on your plate, but we'll see when we get to the World Series. Maybe have you on that week before if you're available.
Sounds good. Look forward to it, guys.
Thank you. Mitch Light, theathletic.com, covers baseball